Like the attention, girl, I know you. But you're everything I want in life. We're fighting danger like kung fu. The love I feel is deep inside. The others don't matter. It's honestly us against the world. We're the perfect team. You're my dream, and I just want it. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself. Myself. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself. Myself. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself. Myself. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself. Oh baby, if you ever need a helper, hey, you should know that I'll be there day and night. Nobody else can love you better. I'm here just to treat you right. You're the reason I'm alive. You're the only pain I can endure. And when you're not here, you're my dream, but I just want it. Yeah, I just wanna. You're my dream, but I just want it. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself. Can't get to myself.
Hi, good morning, Kavita. Are you able to hear me? Hello, good morning. Okay, for some reason I'm not hearing you. Let me see if I put on my headset if it can make a difference.
Hi, morning everyone.
Good morning, Mr. Achil.
Just give me a few minutes to just get some stuff set up.
Yeah, are you able to hear me at all?
Yes, I'm hearing you fine.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm hearing you clearly as well, Jesse.
Okay, great, perfect.
I just want to test out that that video I had mentioned that we wanted to share just before Clifford Webb speaks.
Yes.
I have been able to liaise with Mr. Spalberg, who is liaising directly with him, as
Yes.
well as ANR Sailing Regatta, because I really, for a webinar on investment opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago, I really, in good conscience, couldn't show a video highlighting the sailing regatta in Antigua. So I was able to get a video from ANR Sailing Regatta from highlighting the Tobago regatta. So I just want to test out that video, that it's queued for when I'm ready to use it.
Sure.
Like the attention, girl, I know you. But you're everything I want in life. We're fighting danger like kung fu. The love I feel is deep inside. The others don't matter. It's honestly us against the world. We're the perfect.
Okay, so that looks good on my end there. I just have to make sure that the video starts, that it's queued at the beginning.
Kavita,
Yes, Mr. Ezra.
I'm not seeing the virtual background email.
I would have, let me resend it to you.
I have a
I think you should just put the heading as virtual background.
Sure.
Do I have to use the virtual background as well?
I think you should, Jessie.
Okay. All right, there it is.
I don't know why I didn't receive it.
Good morning, President. Good morning, Jessie.
Good morning.
I lost my manners.
Vashti, quick question. How do you pronounce the Anglophone? Is it Anglophone Caribbean?
Yes.
Anglophone, yes.
Anglophone Caribbean, okay.
Yeah.
Not just English speaking Caribbean.
Well, apart from being English speaking, we're also Anglophone because we love things British.
Oh.
Apparently that's the way it works.
Kavita, you sent it? Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
I did.
Just got it. Thanks. We'll just get that set up. Vashti, also in the speech, you have the hold on. Oh gosh, this bullshit about low memory. Lovely.
Okay.
Yeah, Vashti, let me just get this up quickly so I can ask you this question. Right. According to the World Bank, Trinidad and Tobago's GDP in 2020 was $21.53 billion US, and of which the ocean-based economy or the blue economy is estimated to be worth 22.5 billion, 81% of the country's total GDP 2015. Shouldn't we quote what the 2015 GDP was?
All right, I'll have to pull this up.
I might have, oh shit, no, I closed everything down. Yeah, if you could pull that up for me, that'll be great. I'll just swap it in.
Okay, I just wanted to update you guys. Because we are using Caribbean Exports platform, I am unable to live stream to our page.
Oh.
So we can post, we can share the video afterwards, but we can't live stream.
Is Marvin there?
I don't know.
Could they live stream from their page and be so boss in 2015 our GDP was I just had it here 24.96 billion US.
24.96.
Yes, billion.
Okay.
Could I call you back? I prepared for the webinar.
Okay, folks, I just set a 10-minute counter, which will bring us to 9:55.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Edghill, you're speaking for about 22 minutes.
What? No, no, no.
No.
I'm speaking for about 10 minutes.
Okay, so that's 10:03
Just
to
go.
10:15.
Yeah,
10:03 to 10:15.
roughly,
Okay.
about 10, yeah.
Okay, and then His Excellency from 10:15 to 10:35.
Mhm.
And then from His Excellency, we have Mr. Elaine, 10:35 to 10:55. Then Mayor Martinez, 10:55 to 11:10. And then Clifford Webb, we show the video, and then Mr. Webb, developing the yachting sector up till 11:20, thereabouts. And then from 11:20 to 11:30, Joe, is that Spalberg? Is that how she pronounces it? Or he-
Forward.
Spalberg.
It's a he, and it's forward, yeah.
And it's Joe or Yo?
Joe.
Joe. Okay, Joe Spalberg. Right.
Uh-huh.
And then we have 11:30 to noon. We have the Q&A.
Correct.
Okay. And this is the video on Tobago yachting.
So Kavita, you'll take some screenshots, right?
Sure.
That could use for the iron services.
Okay, no problem. Just give me 1 second. I need to step away from
Sure.
Good morning. Ready?
Good morning.
So it says practice session. I hope that this is the main session. If I have to log on to another link, can you tell me?
No,
No.
this is the practice session. Is so that panelists, if there are any back-end issues to sort out, once we start the webinar, all participants who have entered the room will be in the same room. So you are fine as you are.
Log off and log on again somewhere else.
No, you don't.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you. I'm just going to get my number 2 and to check the camera and everything. You come and check.
Hi, morning, Ambassador. Vashti, quick question. Am I welcoming the Minister of Trade to this or no?
As far as I know, she has not, she's not attending.
Okay, so remove her from the salutations. Yeah?
Yeah.
Or leave it in as a courtesy.
I think Kavita, did she register? I didn't see her registered.
All right, but still, I'll leave
No
it.
one
Yeah, leave
registered.
it as a
I'll leave
courtesy.
it as a courtesy, being a recorded session. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just wanted to double check.
Is any other minister supposed to show up or pop in at
No.
any point? All right, so in the salutations, it's just Minister Gopi School.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And his worship,
The mayor.
yeah, okay.
Kavita, were you able to get Marvin? I'm wondering, Marvin, how are you? I'm good. Marvin, would you be able to do a Facebook Live of the session from your page? Okay, all right.
Just a point of clarification, do I need to address his worship first after his excellency? I'm thinking in terms of the order of precedence.
Yes, I believe so.
So his worship before, after his excellency.
Correct.
Yeah, we have it in the correct order, I believe. So it's the minister, His Excellency the Ambassador, then His Worship the Mayor,
Yeah,
then Mr. Allen,
yeah.
and then representatives of the Ministry of Industry, representatives of the Caribbean.
All right, just hold 1 minute. Let me put you on speaker. Kavita,
Yes.
I have Marvin here. So he said you as host can enable the live stream.
Yeah, well, I tried that, but I was unable to. It said I don't have permission.
Right, I will give you back the host, right? So you can just, on the bottom, you can just click the more options and then do live on Facebook.
Okay,
And then
no
you
problem.
have to log in and so on.
No problem.
Okay, thanks, Marvin. Bye.
No problem.
But Mr. Edgel, I address you first as host of the session, yes?
Vashti? Vashti?
She's tied up. She's tied up.
Okay.
I'm trying to
Yes,
remember my,
Jesse,
I address
Jesse.
Mr. Edgel first as host of the session.
yes, you
And
do.
the minister, then his excellency, then his worship, and then Mr. Alain. Yes?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
What's our attendance looking like?
As of this morning, we have 196 persons registered. I don't know how many persons are in the room at this time because we are still in practice session.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Just did a test run to just to share my screen, just to make sure I could do it.
Morning, Sekou.
Morning, morning.
Looking sharp. Can't help it.
So guys, that was ministers, as in Minister of Work Secretary.
Ah,
He said that how we did not follow up with him.
Do they know how many times we have tried
And,
reaching out to them? And there has been
He
no
wants to
answer.
ensure that we did not put him on the agenda.
yeah, we haven't. So this is when they decide to return our call this morning.
Yeah.
Yes,
Please.
that's
Not send
9:57.
that's
You
very
can send-
special.
Yeah, you can send the waiter back. Do not sip that cup of tea.
Oh gosh, I have to do my background. Sorry. My bad. Save as.
Hello?
Okay, folks, that's 10 a.m. Do we give another 2-3 minutes to ensure that we have as many people in the room as possible?
I think maybe just welcome whoever's there and let them know that we'll be starting in a few minutes to give a few people to join. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, how do I, I'll need someone to switch me because I'm still in the practice session.
So Jesse, we are still in the practice session, so Kavita will have to go into the.
Kavita needs to switch us over. I hope you know how to do that.
I think she's trying to organize a live feed.
But his secretary did give me her mobile number so that we could contact her directly next time.
Perfect. Excellent. How are we looking there?
Yeah.
Vash, you need to come up a little bit. Vash, I didn't see a vote of thanks. Anybody doing that at the end? Or will you?
I think Jesse would.
Jesse would? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thanking all the sponsors.
Yeah.
Participants. All the presenters and participants. We don't have sponsors.
Okay.
And particularly Ambassador Cavendish for his support of this.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Kavita is on the phone with the mayor's office.
Oh Lord have mercy. Poor Kavita. I hope she has a bottle of water close by to sip from.
Water?
Yeah.
Water will do it.
No, it has to be water so that, you know, everything goes smoothly. Anything stronger than that, we'd be in trouble.
All right, we need to get across to the live feed because it's 5 past 10.
She's still on the phone with the mayor.
Is anyone else there that can put us across?
She's the only one that have host rights.
All right. So yeah, as we said the last time, we will use our own platform instead of the export or Kerbin export because the linkages are a little too complicated. Ambassador, the participants are up to 196, I believe they said. So I think we're getting a pretty
That's
good
just fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But we need to go live soon because some people will be frustrated about logging on.
Correct.
And
Exactly.
Hi,
Kavita, could we go live now?
Sure. The mayor is logging in. He is just having some issues with the internet on his end, but he is logging in about 2 minutes. As I said, as soon as I start the session, I will try once again to to share via Facebook. But
All right, well, I think it's 6 minutes past, so let's go live.
You need to go live, Kavita. We need to get the
okay, doing so now.
it's sort of the live feeds later on.
So we are live.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this very important and special webinar, Building a World-Class Maritime Industry in Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Jessamine Venture, and I am the moderator for today's events, and which is brought to you, the events are brought to you by the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries in collaboration with the delegation of the European Union, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and Invest TT. Without further ado, we begin the session this morning. Special salutations go out to the President of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Service Industries, Mr. Mark Edgehill. Good morning to Minister Paula Gopi-Schoon, Minister of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. His Excellency Peter Cavendish, Ambassador, European Union Delegation in Trinidad and Tobago. His Worship, Joel Martinez, Mayor of Port of Spain. Mr. Sekou Alain, President of Invest TT. Distinguished panelists, representatives from the Ministry of Trade and Industry, representatives from the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries, distinguished participants who are joining us this morning from all corners of the world, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today's webinar promises to be a very informative session in which you will find out all the opportunities that are available in the Trinidad and Tobago maritime industry. Placed within the context of the global arena, we are hoping to tap into that multi-billion, some would say even trillion-dollar industry, which although there have been issues given the 2-year pandemic that we're coming out of, and also some of the uncertainties concerning the Ukraine-Russia situation, we are still hopeful and optimistic that there are opportunities to be grasped in the global maritime industry, and particularly what Trinidad and Tobago has to offer. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to President of the TTCSI, Mr. Mark Edgehill.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Good morning. Senator, the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon, Minister of Trade and Industry, His Excellency Peter Cavendish, Delegation of the European Union to Trinidad and Tobago, His Worship Joel Martinez, Mayor of Port of Spain, Sekou Alain, President of Invest TT, representatives of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, representatives of the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce in Europe, potential investors, distinguished moderator, Ms. Jessamine Venture, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, and welcome to our Building a World-Class Maritime Industry webinar. The Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries is pleased to be hosting this webinar in collaboration with the delegation of the European Union to Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Invest TT, Caribbean Export, and the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce in Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our intention today to catapult the development of the maritime industry in this Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. This sector has been on the radar for development for over 3 decades for the following reasons. Trinidad and Tobago is a major player in CARICOM, which has a population size of approximately 6 million people. Without a doubt, Trinidad and Tobago is one of the most formidable economies in the Anglophone Caribbean. We are the gateway also to the Americas. We are the home to 2 mature industrial ports located in the capital city of Port of Spain and the energy hub of Point Lisas. These ports currently serve as key transshipment centers between the Americas and typically deal with dry cargo along with industrial bulk and containers. There is a sophisticated market of tertiary education participation rate exceeding 65% in 2015. We have a thriving yachting industry that is currently being reimagined and reignited. At present, there are 12 marina or boatyard facilities, and the country has the capacity for over 975 visiting yachts. In addition, there are approximately 150 repair contractors ranging in size from one-person operations to businesses with over 20 employees or more. Approximately 1,400 people are directly employed by the yachting industry in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is increasing. Over the past 2 to 3 years, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has placed emphasis on the maritime sector as one of the key national economic areas for significant scope for growth and investment. This sector comprises port facilities and services, logistics, maritime business services, maritime transportation and shipping, ship maintenance and repair, maritime pilot programs, as in training of pilots to operate ships, not first-time programs, yachting services and repairs, cruise ships and tourism activities, ecotourism, maritime safety and security, the maritime environment, or the marine environment, offshore aquaculture, and all related services, training and education programs, and downstream sectors. According to the World Bank reports, Trinidad and Tobago's GDP in 2020 was $21.53 billion, and of which the ocean-based economy, or blue economy, is estimated to be around 81%. And that is of total GDP, and is stated to be worth 22.5 billion, 22.5 billion of the country's total GDP in 2015, which was 24.96 billion. As a small island economy, the preservation of our blue economy is key to the survival and sustainability of the socio-economic framework of our society. The Commonwealth Secretariat pointed out in 2021 that the worldwide ocean economy is valued at approximately $1.5 trillion per year, making it the 7th largest economy in the world. This is set to double by 2030 to $3 trillion. The total value of ocean assets also and national capital has been estimated at over $24 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, these statistics shed light on the reason why we must develop this sector. Benefits of the development of this sector have been articulated in the Trinidad and Tobago Trade Policy 2019 to 2023. The policy pointed out the export capacity of the sector, as well as the intention to embark on a robust agenda of building the export capacity of its subsectors, namely ship repair and dry docking, due to its high potential for foreign exchange earnings and job creation capabilities. The Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries is conscious of past difficulties faced by prospects seeking to make investment in Trinidad and Tobago across many different sectors. And as president of the leading agency for services in the country, I want to assure our attendees, the viewing public, and all potential investors and stakeholders that the TTCSI is focused on developing or the development of the maritime and yachting sectors and all related downstream and support services. And we will continue to work to facilitate the necessary stakeholder collaborations to achieve the successful negotiation, execution, and delivery of investment opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago, and encourage all stakeholders with prior interest in our vastly lucrative islands to reignite your interest and contact us at the TTCSI for discussions on facilitating your foreign investment interests. Let me reassure you that it's not business as usual. In a nutshell, the current economic realities demand a shift in paradigm. Trinidad and Tobago is open for business, and we have a legal geographical location, an ideal geographical location, a sophisticated workforce as mentioned earlier, a strong private sector driven business support organization in the TTCSI that is willing to coordinate and drive the change that is needed to develop a world-class marine hub. The TTCSI gives its commitment to process, and I look forward to an in-depth contributions from our partners on the quest for us to build a world-class maritime industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I hope you have a very fruitful and productive morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edgehill. And I just want to take a minute or two before we bring on our next speaker, just to acknowledge a couple of people who have joined us this morning. Just want to acknowledge our embassy of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago based in Brussels. Good morning to you, representatives. Also, our friends at the Yacht Services Association. Many of those representatives have joined us this morning. And we're also getting hellos from our friends and some would say our family in the Caribbean, getting hellos from St. Martin, Barbados, the Bahamas, and Guyana. We have all people from those countries as well are represented here this morning. So special welcome to you. I thank you for your interest in the Trinidad and Tobago maritime industry. And we look forward to fruitful discussions this morning. Just want to inform you that in the chat section of the meeting, you have an opportunity not only to send your greetings, but also during the course of the presentations you're hearing this morning, you'll have an opportunity to put questions to the panelists, questions which will be brought up in the Q&A session at the end of all the presentations. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we move to our second speaker this morning, the very distinguished ambassador of the European delegation to Trinidad and Tobago, His Excellency Peter Cavendish, who has certainly been championing we are open for business and Europe wants to do business with Trinidad and Tobago. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I wish to offer my respects to the Honourable Minister, His Excellency, the Trinidadian High Commissioner in Brussels, the Worshipful Mayor, the President of TTCSI, and the President of InvestTT. The European Union delegations had a very long association in this country. We've been here since 1976, and in that time, we've invested in this country about 2.4 billion Trinidadian dollars, or approximately 300 million euros. Why I'm referring to that, because I wish to draw to everybody's attention, both here in Trinidad and Tobago and abroad, that amongst the investments that we have made in this country, we have spent over 13 million euros on a radar system, a Doppler radar system, which is to the benefit of not only the entire yachting and maritime industry, but of all persons who live within this hurricane area. Happily, Trinidad and Tobago is not within the hurricane belt, but due to the investment we've made here, Trinidad and Tobago, together with Belize, Barbados, and Guyana, we together operate a meteorological service which signals about climatic effects occurring throughout the region to the north of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm giving this as an example of effective and enduring cooperation. Since 2010, this system that we've offered with the Caribbean Meteorological Organization, based here in TT, is telling all yachties and all people who are operating maritime assets and all people of assets on land as well about the progression of meteorological events in the region. This is not the only example of successful collaboration that we've had. We've also funded the University of Trinidad and Tobago and their Maritime Technological Cooperation Centre, and now they have the best Maritime Technological Cooperation Centre in the region, and that centre is also helping other centres outside of the region. We continue to work with the colleagues in InvestTT, and at this point in time, we're looking at spending about 208 million euros in TT and across the Caribbean region. Out of a total package of about 800 million, this country is able to bid for about 208 million euros in projects. And these projects can include, of course, the yachting and maritime sectors. We're particularly looking at green investments, investments in areas that are related to the climate, the blue ocean. And these monies will be made available with more technical information between now and early 2023. So we will work with the government ministers in this country. We will work with the United Nations and other partners to see how we can best build up the future infrastructure of this country, and that includes for the maritime sector. More specifically, at this point in time, we're working with funds of up to 15 million euros to bid for, to build capacity in the tertiary level. President Edgehill has referred to the tertiary level, which is extremely important. This is a highly educated country, and we're trying to further increase the technological capacity. And at this point in time, we have a major European port operator talking to a third level body in this country about how to include technical training. This is capacity building. This should directly impact on the yachting and maritime sector in this country. I cannot announce all of the details as we're still in talks, but that is one area where we're actively working with the excellent local authorities to boost the capacity in this country. In addition, we're also working on future investments in digitalization, which this country is already quite advanced digitally. We're seeking to further build digital capacity in this country. We're going to also work on ecotourism, and there are other areas which are also indirectly linked to yachting and maritime, such as fisheries and seafood, where we're trying to also build capacity between third level bodies in TT and third level bodies in Europe. Now, I have given you an outline of some of the areas where we have worked in the past: the Doppler radar system, the Maritime Technology Cooperation Center, the capacity building, and the funds. Of the 208 million that I have mentioned, about 129 million is still to be organized. So we're working with the authorities, and then where there's the green element, an infrastructural element, we can certainly look at financing those. I've come more or less to an outline of what we're working on right now in terms of the money. This is significant. I have to underline that the European Union does not do loans. We give the money in grants. Of course, there are contractual obligations to the giving of the money, but this country has always been successful in meeting those obligations. So we have a long history of successful collaboration with this country, and we do intend to continue to invest heavily, both in education, in green projects, in green infrastructure, in ecotourism, in climate change. And I think given the track record, the successful track record that I've already outlined, we can be very optimistic about what we can achieve over the short, medium, and long term. I think I've given a main overview of the areas in which the EU is active. Tangentially, we are also seeking to promote contacts between business, both in this sector and other sector, on a pure business-to-business basis. This is a bit new for us, but due to the efforts of the EU to help our partner countries recover from COVID, we wish to go forward. I cannot in the public domain talk about some of the business contacts that we are seeking to promote. There's certainly one already with a major maritime component, and we shall have to see if that comes to fruition, but I'm crossing my fingers for that. Now, with that, I'm going to pass you back to the chair and the speaker, but of course, I am available here for questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Cavendish, for your remarks. And yes, just to remind you again, as the ambassador alluded, we do have a pretty extensive question and answer session coming at the end of all the presentations this morning. All you need to do is just utilize the group chat that we've set up for the webinar today and put your question there. We will capture it. What we'll do is try to collate as many related questions as we possibly can to put to our panelists so that we can get everyone covered as easily as possible. We now move along on the agenda this morning, and we want to welcome to address you our next distinguished panelist. He is our partner here at the TTCSI, Mr. Sekou Alain, the president of Invest TT. Good morning to you, Mr. Alain. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you very much, Jesse. I would like to recognize the Senator, the Honorable Paul Igopi-Skoon, Minister of Trade and Industry, and the Minister to which Invest TT reports, His Excellency Peter Cavendish, Ambassador to the European Union Delegation in Trinidad and Tobago, His Worship Joel Martinez, Mayor of Port of Spain, Mr. Edgehill, President of TTCSI, distinguished panelists, distinguished participants, investors, good morning and welcome. My name is Sekou Alain, President of Invest TT. Invest TT being the investment promotion agency for Trinidad and Tobago. And my role today is really to support the development of the maritime industry in Trinidad and Tobago through foreign and local investment in that industry. And so I will be quickly giving an overview of Invest TT, what we do, the services we offer, an overview of Trinidad and Tobago, some of the other prioritized investment opportunity areas, but then of course with a focus on the maritime investment opportunities that we are currently promoting, and some of the others that we are working with some of the stakeholders today to promote in the future. And then we'll talk about some of the incentives that apply. As Jesse mentioned, I will be here for the Q&A session. So if any of your questions that come to mind, you can put them in the chat, or you can ask them after all the presenters. So Investity is represented by an executive team of myself, Stacy, and Pramila Ramdani. Stacy, her team takes care of local direct investment and get investments operational, and Pramila's team works on foreign direct investment. So across both the executives in the company, we provide pre-operational and post-investment services, which is to say that we interact with investors very early in their decision-making process to provide the information and the market and the access to the opportunities that they are seeking. We work primarily in the non-oil and gas sector as a part of the government's economic diversification strategy. And so much of that pre-investment support ensures that we provide the information required, and if that information is not available, that we work with stakeholders to gather that information, and across country site visits, requests for information, assistance with finding property, value chain advisory. There really is not any information that we will not provide in supporting your investment decision, helping you become operational through the approval process. And then we continue to partner with you to ensure that any challenges are addressed, that to ensure that there are supply chain linkages, and really identifying new opportunities. Very important, Investity does not charge investors for its services. It provides these services as a part, again, of the government strategy to ensure that we are open and able and willing to assist investors in getting their projects up and running. And so some of the other services that we provide are listed here, and we can talk to you specifically individually about your investment project and what services we can provide to you to get up and running and beyond. A quick overview on Trinidad and Tobago, and I did know that there were several of our regional counterparts, and I do know there are business persons from Europe that are with us today. Many, and some of you may have this information, some of you may not, but we are 1.4 million people, a parliamentary constitutional republic that is led by our Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, and of course our Head of State, Her Excellency Paula May Weeks. We are just about 6.7 TT dollars to $1 US, with a very well-managed rate against the US dollar. So currency stability has been key for us in our foreign investment activities. We are located at the most southern region of the Caribbean islands, just off the coast of Venezuela, with our key and main sector being the oil and gas sector, not just primary production, but a major downstream energy cluster in Trinidad and Tobago that is exporting across the globe. And the success of that sector, of course, has provided the basis for investment in the infrastructure that has supported the growth and regional stature of our manufacturing sector, as well as a very strong services sector, of course, represented today here by the Coalition of Service Industries. Our positioning in the region through our major trade agreement with CARICOM and its agreements with the European Union, a partnership with the US and Canada, as well as the Central American countries, provide you with major access to large markets, almost 1 billion people, and certainly again in that information provision process, depending on the good that you are seeking to produce and the market that you're seeking to enter, Investity can provide much more detailed information on our investment agreements and access to the markets that are listed here. A major part of our value proposition in many sectors, and of course, very pertinent to the maritime sector, particularly from a yachting standpoint, is our southerly location in the Caribbean and our historical low occurrence of natural disasters and the hurricanes that come through the region. And that is very important for us from a business continuity standpoint across sectors, and again, very applicable to the maritime sector as well, as we will get into a little bit later. And for those of you in key European and North American markets, just some further information on our flight connectivity which as we proceed out of the COVID pandemic, many of those flights are now back on track, and you can get direct flights out of New York, Miami, Houston, etc. And so just an overview of Trinidad and Tobago, of course. InvestDT currently promotes and works with stakeholders to gather and position ourselves regionally with prioritized investment opportunities that leverage our natural and developed advantages, as well as provide investors with access to opportunities to allow them to achieve their business expansion goals. The one most relevant to the reason we are all here today, of course, being those maritime investments, which we have packaged both maritime industrial activities primarily, where I will get into detail on the investment opportunities on our offshore bulk transshipment opportunity in the Gulf of Paria, as well as our ship layup opportunities. Not to take anything away from our other maritime investment opportunities, many of which you will hear today, in the areas of marinas and ship storage, shipbuilding and repair, and of course in the yachting and leisure marine sectors. And InvestDT, supplementary to the services that we provide investors, a major role that we play is working with the stakeholders in each of these areas to determine what those investment opportunities are, to provide the information in these investment opportunities, to package them, and then to further promote and interact with investors around those opportunities. So one of the reasons that this webinar and subsequent webinars is quite key to us is in playing that role, particularly in the yachting and leisure marine sector, such that we can promote and give more specific information on those investment opportunities in Trinidad and of course in Tobago as well. Specific to offshore bulk transshipment, which we currently actually have a major German investor operating in this opportunity area in Trinidad and Tobago. That opportunity being defined as the transfer of bulk goods primarily coming from South America, bauxite, manganese, iron ore, etc., and the offshore transshipment of those bulk goods within pre-designated areas within the Gulf of Paria of Trinidad and Tobago. And so companies that are engaged in the commodities industries in South America that are experiencing significant issues getting those ores and minerals to global markets can have the barges coming out of South America, position themselves next to ocean-going vessels, and with various types of transshipment technology, have those ores transshipped right here in Trinidad and Tobago to these ocean-going vessels. Why? Why would you do that in Trinidad and Tobago? Again, business continuity outside of the hurricane belt, our Gulf of Paria, which is a very large naturally sheltered deep harbor, our proximity to South America and to that shipping route of those ores coming out of South America, and the very well-developed maritime infrastructure that allows this opportunity to happen and allows access to this opportunity, particularly with InvestDT's current interactions with the Maritime Services Division. And so as you can see here, there are specific designated areas in the green areas on the screen where one can access a particular fee structure and an approval from the Maritime Services Division to get up and running within months to commence transshipment activities. And as I mentioned earlier, the German transshipment company Oldendorf is currently actually engaged in this transshipment area just in the southern end of the Gulf of Paria. And so you have the experience of foreign investors accessing and benefiting from this opportunity. You have access to InvestDT and the Maritime Services Division, as well as a packaged fee structure and designated location for that particular activity. Similarly, in the area of ship layups, ships that are temporarily idle due to lack of cargo or industry shocks that would require those ships to become idle. Several years ago, we would have had Transocean having cold stacking happening in Trinidad and Tobago, and those were oil and gas rigs that were temporarily idle. Those have now moved back out into use, and or some of them have been taken offline. Those ships were able to access those same designated areas in order to be laid up when, of course, their industry activity called for them to do so. And so we have both cold layup activities, so layup over a long period of time, up to 5 years. We had Transocean in the country for just more than 6 years. And then warm layups, which is for vessels that just need a short-term ability to lay up and are out of service just around a 12-month time frame. Again, similar reasons you would do that here: our hurricane safety record, the maritime infrastructure, and the access to the opportunity in designated areas where it is well-defined fee structure for those layups. And through InvestIT and the Maritime Services Division, we get you access to those layups in a very short space of time. I would also say that in our working with the stakeholders in developing marina investment opportunities, in developing further yachting and leisure marine development opportunities, as well as shipbuilding and repair, InvestIT seeks to develop information that we can share that is as specific as these opportunities that we're sharing today. So we're hoping that this snapshot gets you eager and allows you to understand a little bit more about what we're offering and how InvestIT can support you, as well as give you access to special economic zone incentives, which recently proclaimed in January for the sections of the Act that will set up the SEC authority, will allow special economic zones to be developed either as designated areas where the activities that you have listed in front of you that are permitted in these zones can be set up as a single zone enterprise, and or we can have specialized zones for those particular activities. So for instance, a particular transshipment or marina opportunity within the zone that it itself occupies can be a special economic zone and therefore gain access to the incentives allowed under the zone. Or one can set up an entire zone, maybe with several marinas or several transshipment opportunities, where those accessing those zones would have to meet the criteria for special economic zone benefits. So just to indicate that the access is twofold and flexible, and certainly as listed here, maritime services expected to be a major part of the investors that are going to be able to access these this special economic zone incentives, which include exemption from importation of all approved capital goods, spare parts, or raw materials that are coming into either the designated zone or the individual specialized activity, reinvestment release, enhanced relief, research and development allowances, as well as, very importantly, reduced corporation tax and exemptions from property tax obligations. And so they're deep and wide-ranging incentives that operationally investors can access to ensure that the investments that they're making can be reinvested in the operations of the firm. The supply lane linkages can be deepened within Trinidad and Tobago. And so the special economic zone regime, the authority which is currently being developed and is expected to come on stream between July and December of 2002 this year, will work and very quickly in parallel with InvestIT facilitating any of your investment opportunities, whether in bulk transshipment, whether in ship layup, and or other opportunities that you may identify in the maritime area. I've already seen some talking about projects in the maritime sector in the chat, so we look forward to interacting with you on those specific projects and or providing more specific detail than we've provided here in the maritime sector. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with the ambassador to the European Union, with Mark over at TTCSI and all the local stakeholders to further build out these opportunities and give access to the ones that are existing now. Please feel free to contact InvestIT across our LinkedIn and social media channels and or through our website, investit.co.tt. Thanks again, and back over to you, Jesse.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lane, for a very detailed presentation. And I know that you've whet the appetite of many of our participants this morning. Just a quick reminder, if you have questions for any of our presenters, while they are presenting, you have an opportunity to log those questions in the chat that's been provided for the webinar. We're going to capture those questions that you have, and then we're going to bring them back to the presenters so that they can respond to you during our special Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Before we go to our next presenter this morning, I just want to acknowledge another of our partners that have made today's webinar possible, and that is the Caribbean Export Development Agency. They're providing us with technical as well as technological support to make the webinar happen. We also want to extend warm greetings to the many engineers and engineering firms who have joined us this morning, and also the folks from the finance sector, the financiers. Without you, it wouldn't be possible to make any of this dream come true. So we're happy to hear that you are here and anxious to find out how you can be a part of building up this very exciting sector in the Trinidad and Tobago economy. Now, let's get back to another of our speakers. And up next, we will hear from a gentleman who actually, his jurisdiction, it actually covers one of the largest ports in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm speaking of none other than His Worship Joel Martinez, the mayor of Port of Spain. And yes, that's right, the Port of Spain lies under his purview. So without further ado, we are going to be hearing from the mayor what his dream is for the city of Port of Spain and how he plans to see it become a maritime hub. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Jessamine Venter. Good morning to all. Let me first acknowledge the Honorable Minister Paula Gopi-Schoon, Minister of Trade and Industry, His Excellency Peter Cavendish, Ambassador of the European Union Delegation in Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Mark Edgell, President of TTCSI, Suku Allen, President of InvestTT, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to just say a few words on Port of Spain this morning, and to see how excited I am just to share a couple of ideas and opportunities that we have in the city of Port of Spain. I have been hearing the previous speakers, and they have tremendously excited me based on the fact that any type of development that is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago and near or close to Port of Spain, or in Port of Spain, that for that matter, would interest me tremendously. And the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industry has congratulations to you this morning for this fine job that you put on this event. You know, we talk about investment opportunities in the maritime and yachting sector and we have also looked at development plans and investment opportunities in the sector within the capital city. So one thing that we have learned is that the pandemic has taught us is that building back any industry or business after being closed down for a period of time is tremendously difficult. However, it presents a number of opportunities for further development, and this is a good time for that, I must say. The yachting and maritime industry has had a serious challenge on its hands over the years because we have had an industry that has gone as far as 2,500 yachts in Trinidad at any given time, and now I think we're down to less than 1,000, and that must be a difficult position to be in. However, we are open for business, and if we are open for business, the opportunity that we have can only augur well, knowing that we have a Minister of Trade at this time that is very willing and very interested in developing the trade industry, and at the same time in hearing the ambassador to the European Union, all the good things that they have done and the grants that they have put in place to help Trinidad and Tobago in its development stage. So since becoming the mayor of the city of Port of Spain in 2016, the Prime Minister's office expressed its willingness to revitalize the city of Port of Spain. We have had a number of discussions with the architectural firm Udicot, and we have engaged a number of ministries like the Ministry of Planning, which also includes Town and Country, local government, social development, Works and Transport, National Security, Ministry of Housing, and the Office of the Prime Minister. So, you know, the thing about it is that all these industries, all these ministries work in silos a lot of times, and we have found a mechanism to break down the barrier and bring these ministries together to discuss the revitalization of the city of Port of Spain. And as you would know, the Prime Minister would have made a number of indications as to what the objective really is. And the real objective of the revitalization of the city is that we want to bring people back to the city. We want to encourage residential living back in the city. And if that is done, if you look basically at how the major cities in the world that have developed, the population continues to grow within the city, whereas in the city of Port of Spain, the population died, and we have down to 45,000 people living in the city. We are a very transient city, and as you know, that a lot of people come to the city, but in the afternoon at 5 o'clock, the city drains out just like it enters in the morning. How can we change that? Well, it requires a number of changes, a number of opportunities, a number of exercises that need to be done. And in looking at the direction and speaking with city planners over the years, what we have found is that you have to, if you look at the One Woodbrook Place model, and you've seen that building where it now houses over 400 residents in a space that house one resident, 2 panyards, one or two commercial entities many years ago now have restaurants, work offices, commercial entities, and residents, all in the same geographic space that was there. If we can continue to do that, and some of the projects that have been presented by the Prime Minister is the Victoria Plaza, and that is where the former Powergen site is. That is to be transformed into, and including parking and residential, commercial, and so on. Then there's a Tragreet Road residential project. That is where the government printry is, where the government printry was, sorry, and the East Port of Spain, Piccadilly Street, Ministry of Housing did do a presentation there. Memorial Plaza, which is between Charlotte and Frederick Street and Keith Street. Also, you have Arapita Avenue, and that should be starting within the next couple of weeks. They already started to mobilize on Arapita Avenue. We also have where the Desper Spaniard is going to be, the new theater on George, between George and Nelson Street. We've seen Chinatown and the 2 arches that go up on Chinatown, and we are looking at the possibility of semi-pedestrianizing that street to some extent to make it one large sort of promenade to hook up with the Brian Lara's promenade, which we are also doing work to beautify the Brian Lara promenade all the way from the western end to the eastern end, and so on. And then you have the Broadway beautification project, because we also have a Marriott that is supposed to be at what we would call a downtown Marriott site, which is where Salvatore building is. Work is supposed to be, or sign-in of that document is supposed to have taken place just now. We also want to create something that when we received the designation from the UNESCO City of Music, one of the designations was to objective was to create something called the City of Festivals. And we know that Carnival is a major festival in the city of Port of Spain. Usi is also another major festival that takes place and draws a lot of people into its whole space when that happens. And we want to be able to also develop something called ambient music on the promenade, music quarters where we want to engage all the panyards. As you realize, we have a number of panyards in the city of Port of Spain. All the major steel bands of repute is in the city of Port of Spain, and they're also very close by, so we can create music quarters and build on that cultural explosion. And then we want to be able to find a way to engage and honor our icons through a walk of fame. All of that is to be done under the City of Music. And then we will eventually look at developing sport and so on. And in terms of the fact that we have a piece of land down in what you call Cokereat farmlands, and that is at the edge of Cokereat where Port of Spain sort of ends. As you would realize, we developed a park opposite West Mall for residential opportunities, and well, not residential, for residents in the area to be able to enjoy themselves. And as you would realize, that park is very much used now. The Diego Martin Corporation is going to take possession of that, and we have leased them that for 199 years. Also, on the opposite side, which is next to Paragon Sports Club, we have a piece of land there that we are toying with right now as to what we want to do with it. And one of the discussions is to create a marina as such. And if we get that opportunity, we have written to the Commission of State Lands to be able to transform that space into a marina there. We have also engaged Andrew Lewis, which is a young Olympian sailor, to do a sailing school to be able to allow young Trinidadians to be able to use it and to learn to sail and to be able to not be afraid of the water as such. So we have a number of projects that we have started on, as you would know, but we also have projects that we are looking forward to, and hopefully we'll be able to really make a difference in transforming the city of Port of Spain as such. And as the European ambassador indicated, we are open for business. And being open for business means that we want to take advantage of all the opportunities ahead of us now, and to be able to make all those changes as much as possible, engage the population in doing so that they can appreciate and enjoy the fact that we're a country that needs to diversify. We need to be able to continue to grow and to have one of the best cities in the Caribbean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And we appreciate hearing of your vision for developing the capital city. And during his presentation, the mayor flagged an interesting point. You cannot talk maritime industry without talking about the yachting and leisure marine subsector. And that's where we're going to be turning our attention to in this next presentation. But before we go to our panelists, we have a video that we want to share with you, showcasing leisure marine activity in Tobago.
Yeah, like the attention, girl, I know you, but you're everything I want in life. Yeah. We're fighting danger like kung fu. The love I feel is deep inside. The others don't matter. It's honestly us against the world. We're the perfect team. You're my dream, and I just want it. Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? See myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? See myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? See myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Can you see myself? Oh baby, if you ever need a helper, hey, you should know that I'll be there day and night. Nobody else can love you better. I'm here just to treat you right. You're the reason I'm alive. You're the only pain I can endure. But when you're not here, you're my dream, but I just want it. Yeah, I just wanna. You're my dream, but I just want it.
Deep inside, I knew from the start, you my bunny, I'm your Clark. From now to eternity, I give you all my heart. We are meant to be, it's clear to see. My love is bigger than I thought. I got everything I want when I hold you with my arm. Now this no matter, my love and my pleasure, the key to my treasure. Whatever's the weather, day up and out with you till I die. How many times for you I'ma try? Want you to notice the one and I know this perfect soulmate. I wanna show it my best friend. She saved my life, my happy end in hard times. Oh baby.
All right, and that's just a tiny taste of a regatta event that occurred in Tobago not too long ago. We want to thank Mr. Clifford Webb very much for making it possible for us to be able to share the video to our participants this morning, that bit of showcase of the ANR Sailing Regatta. Without further ado, we want to say good morning and welcome to our next panelist, Clifford Webb. He's chairman of the British Journalists Yachting Association, and he will be looking at what it will take to develop the yachting sector for Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Webb, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Just nod if you can hear me.
Very
yeah.
loud
Okay.
and clear.
Okay, marvelous. So actually, that was a really interesting little video. Quite enjoyed that. Haven't seen that one for a long time. So I am the chairman of the Yachting Journalists Association, which is actually an international body around the world. We operate literally in just about every country. It's the preeminent association for photographers and journalists, those working in publicity, TV and radio. And the aim of the YJA is to promote greater awareness of all aspects of leisure boating through the professional services of our members. Now, we represent hundreds of specialist marine journalists, and they work across all the major sailing and boating regions in the world. So if there's anything that you need to know about this business from a, let's say, an independent perspective, we've got someone who can probably help you. And as part of this webinar today, I sort of reached out to some of our members to get their views on this region and what was happening generally in the business. I was asked to give a brief overview of the latest trends and developments of the international yachting market. So obviously the Caribbean is a huge area for this, and we've got some specialists in that region who would love to help out. You can find all of our members at www.yja.world. I'll put that in the chat afterwards. So I had a discussion and we've read some reports and discussed with some of our expert members. Let me start with some key highlights of what they've suggested are going to happen through various reports and so on over the next 10 years. And this is not just for the Caribbean, obviously this is worldwide. And that is that demand in the Gulf region, so the Arab states and that, for the marine sector will see a rise of something like 7% between the next 10 years. Demand in Thailand and indeed the whole of the Asia Pacific region is emerging and recovering now as the tourism sector starts to rebound. That whole region is going to be huge, according to what my colleagues out in Hong Kong were saying, for example. Indonesia and the Maldives will emerge as popular yacht charter destinations as well in that region. And there's going to be high spending on luxury vacations that's going to reconfirm the US as a key market for the marine leisure sector. Now, I think we kind of all knew that anyway, but it was interesting to get those views on sort of the highlights, as it were. I've also heard some interesting numbers earlier today in this webinar, so we thought we'd sort of address that a little bit, as there are different varying estimates on the global yachting and motorboat market size. And it seems that, you know, whoever you're going to talk to, but and where their interests lay, but it appears to be modestly valued at between 9 and 12 billion US dollars in terms of the current valuation, expected to expand a further 5% over the next 10 years or so. So as I say, we've read and discussed all these different reports. And one area that's certainly of interest is the demand for yachts and motorboats was increasing in recent years owing to the growth in disposable income of many high net worth individuals around the world. And there's been a surge in interest towards a demand for luxury leisure and water sports, together with a wide range of recreational activities as well. And that seems to be substantiated, but at the same time, of course, it was hit very severely through the whole lockdowns and the COVID pandemic, as I'm sure you can understand. And it was very seriously affected during that time, with sales and holiday businesses facing enormous decline due to everyone's uncertainty as to what was going to happen, of course. But since then, since the world has started to sort of ostensibly emerge from that dark period, we've seen domestic yacht sales dramatically increase, as has the prices of those yachts. In the UK, for example, the second-hand market has gone ballistic over here. You can't get boats anymore for sensible prices. I mean, they've gone up 20 to 30% more than they were a year and a half ago in that period of time. And also, because of the whole Brexit side of things from where we are, that's sort of exacerbated that situation. So the market here has gone mad. And we've seen that around the world as well. Prices have increased. There's been a huge demand for people to get out and go into adventure sports. And I'll explain a little bit about that momentarily. Luxury tourism has seen an increase in yacht sales, as has the travel and adventure side of our business. One of our clients, in fact, that we have in my own business, which is 1080 Media Television, we produce TV shows, the Clipper Around the World Yacht Race, which I'm sure many of you will have heard of, which was suspended for 2 years in the Philippines, has now sold out on this race edition now that they've restarted it. So they were locked down in the Philippines for 2 years, and then obviously a lot of people couldn't continue on the race. Now they've managed to sell all of those berths, and the race has just restarted, and they're heading now for Panama, in fact, and then they're going on to Bermuda and then back to London eventually in the next 5 months. But they have a 2023 race, which is due to take place begins in September next year. So it's 23-24, so it's an 11-month race. They've got over 800 people signed up for it. They are sold out now, just to sort of reflect that interest in the travel and adventure market. And their 24-25 edition is almost 60% sold already. That's quite remarkable. I don't think they've seen that in their 25 years of business, where they've had so many people out there booking up so early. So it's great for them, obviously. And they're also about destination marketing, which of course Caribbean is very big on this in that respect. So they've got races which are going from the UK through to Uruguay, Cape Town, the western east coast of Australia, 3 stops in China, where there's obviously huge interest in yacht racing now. Then on to Seattle, Panama. They're stopping in Bermuda in about 5 weeks' time for a week there, and then go all the way back round again to London. So as I say, it's usually an 11-month round trip, but every sporting event is now looking at their green credentials as indeed are the Clipper race. So there's been a huge focus around the whole eco-friendly engine systems, less polluting fuels, engines, electric propulsion, including prop-driven recharging of electric batteries to drive engines. Now, Clipper aren't there with that yet, but I tell you what, a lot of manufacturers now are looking at this to move forward, and that's going to become a prevalent factor in industry moving forwards. People are looking at their very green credentials, obviously. They have to, because of the whole marine conservation side of things. And that's all part of this tourism and eco business as well, of course. Now, as I said earlier, there's also a lot of talk still about the luxury end of the market and the high net worth individual enjoying their yachting and motorboat cruising and lifestyles. And that definitely appears to be true as a continuing trend. But it's actually quite a small percentage of the customer base for many of the manufacturers. Over the next 10 years, industry experts predict that the super yacht segment, which in 2021 accounted for about 20% of sales roughly around the world, that's going to continue to grow, but it's still in the minority, obviously. That also is subject to how many Russian oligarchs are left, of course, but we shall see after this and see what they can afford to spend. Who knows? Nonetheless, most average people, should we say, they're still looking at yacht charters and enjoying weeks afloat. Caribbean is huge for this, of course. There are many areas down there where you can charter yachts, of course, around the world as well. There's a company called Borrow a Boat, for example, where you can rent. It's a little bit like Airbnb, if you know that. You can rent a boat there. They've got around 35,000 boats on their list worldwide, and they enjoyed a recent round of £3.8 million in new investment. And others, companies are coming in and joining that market. So that's an amazing area for everybody to consider, because obviously along comes with that the marina development and so on. We've seen a lot of that in Asia in recent years. In fact, our Clipper race client, they've actually got a factory they've built in China now. They're developing 2 fleets of yachts, one for an around the world race, another one for training in the Chinese cities, which is becoming huge. So they're, as part of that, looking and talking to governments in China about building marina development for them as well. So this is another area, of course, that all comes as part of the leisure side of things. Racing is going to stay huge. Yacht racing and motorboat racing, these are all going to be large areas of business going forwards. Of course, it's hugely popular in Europe, the USA, of course, the Caribbean, and the rest of Asia too. We've covered many, many events in Asia and the Caribbean, in fact, over the years, so we know just how popular they are. Europe's thirst for yacht racing seems to be insatiable. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Barcelona was recently won the bid to become the prestigious America's Cup venue, which is by the New Zealand team who won the Cup and are defending it, but they've decided to take it to Europe, given the financial incentives they had. Having said that, there were many cities bidding for that, and they were offering hundreds of millions of dollars. The Gulf region in particular were very keen on hosting it, but in the end, their location just wasn't ideal. So we've found that very interesting to watch from, if you like, within the media side to see where that bid went to in the end. Really interesting, hundreds of millions of dollars involved. And of course, the Olympics are coming our way as well in France in 2024, which is when the America's Cup is. So the sailing is going to be held there. That's going to be a huge economic impact, obviously, in the region as well. Now, as I said earlier, the Caribbean is no stranger to top-class sailing events. Without doubt, it's one of my favorite places to visit, for sure. This week, and I'm going to talk about this, I know we're talking about Trinidad, but I'm sure many of you will be aware that the Antigua Sailing Week is on this week, which is an enormous event that draws thousands of people in and hundreds of boats to compete, and the economic impact of that is quite significant. The lovely little video that you guys played earlier, which was tremendous. They've got their own videos going, of course, but it's certainly an area of increasing demand for more recreational tournaments. Of course, not just sailing, but all water sports. So it's worth having a look at that and seeing what can be done in other regions. I think they all create huge employment opportunities, which is why I know that the Antigua government invested in that quite heavily, as well as tourism. Now, Tobago has had a regatta in the past, and that was the video that we saw earlier, but it's not been able to take place in the last couple of years. Obviously, COVID affected, which is really sad, but it's one of many, many regattas that happen in the Caribbean. And I would certainly urge people to look at investing into yacht racing down there, get that regatta going again. We'll come and support it with our journalists and members, and we'll give you publicity all around the world. I think that's a really big area that you can establish and keep going. There is huge interest in this in the coastal areas, of course, recreational for all water sports. But of course, marine conservation, as I mentioned earlier, has to be looked at, and that's something that I know the Caribbean is desperately keen to continue. So I'd certainly welcome any kind of suggestions and recommendations to help people there as well. So that's it, really, a real quick overview of the marine market. All of those are going to happen as far as we can see with amongst our members that we've discussed it. Be delighted to chat with anyone, and any of our YJA members would be able to assist with inquiries. We've specialists in all areas. So if there's any ideas, thoughts, or questions, then do let us know. That's it.
Thank you very much, Clifford Webb, for your presentation. And just to give you a heads up, Mr. Webb, we've been getting many questions coming out of your particular presentation. So we're going to be sharing those so that you can respond to our participants during the question and answer session, which is coming up in just a bit, actually. Just to remind everyone again, you hear something of interest in the presentation that's taking place, just simply jot your question down into the chat window that we provided for the webinar. We'll pull those questions out, try to collate them as much as we possibly can, and put your questions to the panelists, the presenters, as far as thematically possible, and they'll respond to you. So looking forward to more of your questions coming in. We're moving without further ado to our next panelist, and we're very pleased to have Mr. Joe Spalberg with us this morning. He is the Secretary of the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce in Europe, and his presentation, Developing a World-Class Maritime Sector Using International Best Practice. Mr. Spalberg, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for those of you in Europe. I would like to acknowledge Senator, the Honourable Gopis-Coon, Minister of Trade and Industry of Trinidad and Tobago, Ambassador Cavendish of the European Union in Trinidad and Tobago, Ambassador Connolly of Trinidad and Tobago here in Brussels, and His Worship Mayor Joel Martinez, President Siku Aline of InvestTT, President Mark Edgill of TTCSI, our friends of Caribbean Export Development Agency, distinguished panelists and other dignitaries and guests present here today. Gives me great pleasure to share with you my presentation today, which is actually going to be about the European Green Deal. As much as I would have liked to talk about another leisure sector, which is the cruise industry, which is more in my street, given my background in tourism, I really felt that that this is a very important subject, which we should be looking at. Let me just see if I can get into presentation mode. One moment, please. Yes. Here we are. Right. First of all, a few words about our Chamber of Commerce, which is based in Brussels. We are a multilateral non-for-profit business services organization established in November 2019. And we work with a team of experts, mainly from the diaspora, including some of our experts from Trinidad and Tobago, based in Brussels, Zurich, and Lisbon, as you can see here. We have a growing network of partner organizations, including Export TT, Invest TT, and TTCSI. And of course, we work with the Trade Office of the Kingdom of Belgium, the Netherlands, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Ministère d'Outre-mer in France, as well as DIT in the UK. We're based at the Brussels Chamber, and we're also part of a network of chambers of commerce. As a matter of fact, we form a cluster at BCI with other chambers of commerce from Central and South America. Our mission is simple and twofold. On one hand, to facilitate trade and commerce between the Caribbean and Europe, and on the other hand, to promote all types of investment related to the economic growth for the region from Europe. So our mission is derived from our vision is derived from our mission. We want to become the one-stop shop for doing business in Europe from the Caribbean, and of course, the gateway for doing business in the Caribbean from Europe. Our activities are the activities that you would traditionally expect from a Chamber of Commerce, but I would like to say that through the MOU we've signed with our partners in Trinidad and Tobago, we want to complement and not to substitute or duplicate any of their activities by providing market information and market intelligence, in particular from the European Union, which will be the subject of our presentation today, and also matchmaking, of course, not only for exporters from Trinidad and Tobago who want to enter the European market or expand their market share, but also finding investors for the large amount of projects in Trinidad and Tobago, including the maritime sector. So today I'm going to talk about the European Green Deal and the Fit for 55 package.
Sorry to interrupt you, Joe. We're stuck on one of your slides, the first slide. It's not cycling. So if you can just make sure the presentation is working. There you go.
I will have to move it this way then. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, so well, the enterprises of the maritime sector are increasingly influenced by global environmental, social, and governance changes, with a push from coming from financiers, insurers, regulators, and customers, of course. And so to meet these environmental, social, and governance changes, also referred to as ESGs, and to utilize the benefits ahead, they need to be addressed. in the new policy design processes. At CCCE, we believe that the specificities of the maritime sector, as well as the science-based policy-making framework, are the fundamentals for a successful maritime policy development. So, the global maritime industry will face new stringent EU regulations. So in this presentation, I will summarize these new regulations and its relevance for the maritime industry and the shipping sector. The proposals presented by the European Commission are intended to ensure that the maritime sector contributes to the share of EU climate targets. So as part of the European Green Deal, the Euro Commission has set a target of greenhouse gas emissions in 2030 to just 55% compared to 1990, hence the name Fit for 55, and the European climate law sets out binding legislation to EU's commitment to climate neutrality and the intermediate target of reducing net greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And in order to reach such a target, the European Commission has considered actions required across all sectors, which has led to legislative proposals in July 2021, which is quite recent, of course, less than a year old. And these proposals include revisions to existing legislation, as well as a number of new instruments. And these proposals combine, as you can see here, applications of emissions trading to new sectors and a lightening of the existing EU emission trading system, a faster rollout of low emission transport modes and the infrastructure and fuels to support them, an alignment of taxations, policies with the European Green Deal objectives and measures to prevent carbon leakage and tools to preserve and grow our natural carbon sinks. It's not going as fast now, please bear with me. Right, the proposals presented by the European Commission are intended to ensure that the maritime sector contributes its share to EU climate targets. So as you can see here, they concern the EU emissions trading system, or ETS, the Fuel EU Maritime Initiative, and the Energy Taxation Directive. So we will briefly explain each of these three major action points. First of all, with regards to the EU emissions trading system, or ETS. It sets an absolute limit or cap on the total amount of certain greenhouse gases that can be emitted each year by the entities covered by the system. And this cap is reduced over time, resulting in a reduction of total emissions. The European Commission is proposing to extend the scope of the ETS to cover the maritime sector. And pursuant to the proposal, the ETS will be extended to include emissions from all ships above a gross tonnage of 5,000, regardless of their flag. So that's an important measure to take into account. It is proposed that the ETS is gradually extended to include the maritime sector over the period of 2023 to 2025, which is just on us, and shipping companies will have to surrender allowances for a portion of their emissions during the initial phase-in period, reaching 100% after just 3 years. Shipping companies will have to purchase and surrender ETS emission allowances for each ton of reported CO2 emissions, and they will be subject to an administering authority of an EU state that will ensure compliance using the same rules as for other sectors under the ETS. And these are regulations on penalties, and ships can also be denied entry to EU ports where the possible shipping company has failed to surrender the necessary allowances for 2 or more consecutive years. So severe penalties, which the Trinidad and Tobago shipping industry also have to take into account. A reporting and review clause has been proposed to monitor the implementation of the rules applicable to the maritime sector and to take account of relevant developments at the level of the International Maritime Organization, or IMO. Next, the Fuel EU Maritime Initiative. So this proposal is to stimulate the uptake of sustainable maritime fuels and zero emission technologies. The proposed regulation will apply again to all ships above a gross tonnage of 5,000, regardless of their flag. In addition, passenger ships and container ships are, as a main rule, required to use onshore power supplies from 2030 unless they can demonstrate use of other zero-emission technology. The proposal accommodates renewable and low-carbon fuels in the maritime transport, such as LNG, biofuels, e-liquid, decarbonized gas, including bio-LNG and e-gas, decarbonized hydrogen, and decarbonized hydrogen-derived fuels, including methanol and ammonia, as well as electricity. I'll come back to this because of all of these alternative fuels, green hydrogen seems to have the highest potential for development. There is further a proposal for an alternative fuels infrastructure regulation to ensure that the greening of the transport fleet is supported by adequate recharging and refueling infrastructure, something again the Port of Spain and Trinidad and Tobago will have to take into account. The Trans-European Transport Network, or TEN-T, maritime ports will be required to install electricity supply to serve the demand of at least 90% of container and passenger ships calling at the port. Onshore site electricity installation must be provided by every TEN-T inland and waterway port. This will ensure that ships will have access to electricity supply in all major ports. Next slide. Which is concerning the Energy Taxation Directive, or ETD. It sets out structural rules and minimum excise duty rates for the taxation of energy products as motor fuel and heating fuel and electricity. And the proposed update focuses on two main areas. Firstly, the proposal introduces a new structure of tax rates based on the energy content, environmental performance of fuels and electricity. And secondly, the proposal broadens the taxable base by including more products in the scope and by removing some of its current exemptions and reductions. Fuel supplies for use in shipping is currently exempt from taxation under ETD. However, the proposal set forth on July 14, 2021 introduces a minimum tax rate on the relevant fuels used for intra-EU ferry fishing and freight vessels, and sustainable and alternative fuels will be subject to a minimum zero tax rate with a transitional period of 10 years when used for waterborne navigation. So in summary, the Fit for 55 package are proposals presented by the European Commission, and they will be subject to discussions and negotiations before adopted by European Parliament and EU member states. So it remains to be seen what will be the final terms of the proposed legislation, but I think that the maritime sector in Trinidad and Tobago have to be aware of this and make the necessary preparations when the legislation will come in place, because obviously the infrastructural requirements will not be able to be accomplished in a very short time. Although the final legislation has yet to be adopted, there's no doubt that the introduction of regulations required to reach the climate targets will be important and will have a high focus in the coming years. So the global maritime sector, including the maritime sector of Trinidad and Tobago, will be subject to these regulations and requirements. So in addition to the EU regulations, these EU regulations will be in addition, to the IMO regulations on greenhouse gas reduction. So from a strategic perspective, Trinidad and Tobago is advised to take these future requirements into account and start to include measures as part of its strategic maritime industry development plans leading up to 2030 and 2050. I've been going a little fast, but and there's not enough time to show you more, but I would like to close with two examples of case studies. regarding ESG performance and approach to the maritime policy design of a destination. The first one is a case study from Estonia, which have published a maritime policy design framework with ESG performance approach. And I'll be happy to make a copy of this study available to all stakeholders concerned. And the second one is a little closer to home in the Benelux, which is an example of the Rotterdam Port Authority, which, as you probably know, is the largest port in Europe, which is working with various partners towards an introduction of a large-scale hydrogen network across the port complex, as you can see on this map. And they want to make Rotterdam an international hub for hydrogen production, import, application, and transport to other countries in Northwestern Europe. An example where Trinidad could take the lead with its large industrial base for the Caribbean, of course, and to become the energy port hub for the Caribbean. So this is where I would like to close. You'll find my contact details here, and of course you can get in contact with me through TTCSI or InvestCT. Thank you very much for your attention today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spalwick, for your presentation. And for those of you who've been asking, yes, the presentations will be made available to you after today's webinar, as well as contact information for each of the presenters. So fear not, we will have that made available to you. We also will be making available a recording of today's proceedings as well once the webinar is finished. Now it's time to get to the question and answer session for today. And there's been, just to give our panelists a heads up, there has been a sort of a to and fro back and forth on the chat with people talking about the issue of going green, using clean fuels to ensure that we have a sustainable but also environmentally friendly and biodiversity sensitive maritime industry. I'm not sure who would want to take that first, but I think it falls in the remit of Mr. Spalwick as well as Mr. Webb. And I believe, Mr. Alain, you may want to speak to some of this as well in terms of incentives that may be provided for firms that will be tackling these issues of sustainable development, but of course, being environmentally sensitive and using clean fuels as well. So perhaps we can start with Mr. Spalwick.
Sorry, would you mind repeating the question, please?
Yes, there's been a discussion focusing on the issue of using clean fuels, developing in a sustainable way that protects the environment and the biodiversity, and you know, what's going to be involved in that. You alluded to some of this in your presentation with regard to some of the stringent regulations that the EU would be coming up with. So perhaps you can just very succinctly remind our participants of some of the considerations in this regard. We can also hear from Mr. Webb, and I believe from Mr. Alain, he would be able to speak in terms of maybe some of the incentives for persons engaging in green business, as it were, here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, well, there's no doubt that the shipping industry is going to be affected quite importantly by these by ESG. The shipping industry worldwide currently emits reportedly 3% of all greenhouse gases. I actually think it's much more because for some reasons, ships in port leaving their engines run do not count to counter this, from what I understand of how it's being measured. But there have been initiatives from around the world to keep temperatures within safe limits. You know, we'll have to decarbonize. It is more than 5 years now. For example, the Port of Marseille has actually given incentives to ships that use green fuel, so to say. And this could also be something that could be used as an example for the Port of Spain. So green hydrogen could be the answer. I think there's going to be more emphasis on developing hydrogen instead of LNG, and this will also be supported by the World Port Climate Initiative, the WPCI, from what I understand.
Mr. Webb, during your presentation, you talked as well about the leisure marine and the yachting sector, also focusing on being more environmentally friendly. There are many who would say black water is one of the big challenges, but that's not the only challenge. It's also using cleaner fuels as well. Perhaps you can share with us what you've been able to discern as some of the trends in this area and perhaps advise accordingly.
I think what's interesting, if you like, from a media perspective, is the way this is being treated, because there's a lot of interest and a lot of focus on this, obviously, in that people feel that, firstly, that they are obliged to do something now, which perhaps in the past has not been the case, and I do think that's very much an environmental aspect and concern, if you like, which is great, and I think we should all, embrace and endorse that, absolutely. But the biggest issue, obviously, is still going to be the huge oil tankers that are plying the seas of the oceans and dumping who knows what everywhere. We know the impacts of all of that. So it's great that people are looking at all sorts of opportunities and areas where they can improve on the whole biodiversity, for want of a better word. I mean, I was having lunch yesterday with a chap who's developing electric engines for boats, which I referred to earlier, and this is becoming a big area of interest. Of course, think Tesla, for example, in cars. This is where a lot of the marine, for want of a better word, manufacturers are looking at now as something that could be done in the future. It's not going to address the immediate issues, I don't think. But fuel is a big area, as we know, for leisure boats. That is a very big area. The EU have been quite, and Mr. Cavendish will probably know this better than me, quite prominent in this area of late. There's all sorts of issues that we're having in the UK with it as well. And there's a lot of regulation coming in, which is also good, although it's going to be quite, let's say, difficult for marine operators as well, on a smaller basis, perhaps, given the demands being placed upon them. I mean, I'm not an expert in this area at all. A couple of our members certainly would be able to talk your socks off, as they say in this business, about this. It's not my area of speciality, but I am very, very keen to see it, as I'm sure we all are, to sort of help the recover our oceans, as it were. It's absolutely essential to everyone going forward.
Thanks very much, Mr. Webb. Mr. Elaine, I'd like you to take the floor now. Seeing as we're sticking with this theme of sustainability and environmental sensitivity, I know that this is an element that InvestTT would be promoting as it wheels and deals and tries to bring businesses together who want to get business done, both locally and abroad. Yes?
Sure. Thanks for that, Jesse. And I do note that Ambassador Cavendish has his hand raised to respond as well. So, yeah. But I will give a quick answer to your question. Of course, InvestTT is very interested in working with its stakeholders to ensure sustainability and the environmental friendliness of our investments. Both of the investment opportunities I would have given details on are in the industrial maritime area in the Gulf of Paria in Trinidad and Tobago, and certainly from the ship layup standpoint and transshipment standpoint. In both instances, there are concerns with those goods that are being transshipped, which are very dusty, concerns for dust emissions, as well as ensuring that those goods do not end up in the Gulf of Paria, but are in fact put onto the ship. So the EMA, Environmental Management Authority, is part of the process, and one of the stakeholders we work very closely with in coming up with the terms of agreement for access to those opportunities. A certificate of environmental clearance is required for those opportunities, and they do, of course, ultimately make site visits to ensure that the investor is held to the highest environmental standards. I can't speak much to what Mr. Spalberg was speaking to, also not an expert there, but looking forward to going through that presentation and understanding it better. Of course, we look to work with investors that are meeting international environmental standards as well as a part of the global community. So look forward to getting more information on that, and would like to hand over back to you, Jessie May, maybe to allow Ambassador Cavendish to proffer a response.
That's right, Ambassador Cavendish. You wanted to respond to the whole issue of an environmentally sustainable maritime industry in the region.
Well, I just want to give first of all, a very good example. In fact, already in Trinidad and Tobago at Piarca Airport, we're using photovoltaic panels to reduce the energy bill. And in fact, this green way of generating energy may account for approximately 5% of that airport's energy bill. So there we already have a practical example of using photovoltaic energy. So for example, airplanes can recharge their batteries. A part of that energy is green. So it's not excluded that we can do similar things in ports in the future, that with photovoltaic energy, for example, we can help ships to, turn their facilities, keep the lights, keep the refrigeration going with a cleaner energy than turning diesel engines. The issue of black water, wastewater, recycling, again, I mentioned earlier, we've up to 129 million euros to put into projects. We just really need either a state entity or a very big entity to come forward with project proposals on recycling, for example, which can be applied here in the maritime sector, and also the lessons from that can be exported to elsewhere in the region. So the issues that have been raised are very important issues. They do have to be addressed, but I would point out we already have a successful example of generating green energy in this country to reduce an energy bill at the airport with cleaner energy, and we can try and do the same for the maritime sector. So I'm putting it out there, and we are looking for projects, people to come forward between now and 2023. We have had contacts with His Worship, the Mayor of the Port of Spain, and we certainly wish to go forward with projects that are green, renewable, recycling, clean. So this is exactly what we're looking for. And I'm very happy that Mr. Clifford and the others have put this issue out there from their point of view. But I'm saying here, we're not passive. We're willing to help people to work towards cleaner solutions, and very hopeful, given this country is the leader in CARICOM in terms of wealth and education and historical achievements, that we can have good lessons from this country to share with other CARICOM countries. So just put that out there. Good lessons already from the airport, and looking to work in areas that have been flagged with funds.
Thanks very much, Ambassador Cavendish. Ladies and gentlemen, in the event that you're hearing any noise in the background on my audio, there is some major construction taking place where I am, so I apologize for that background noise. Getting back to the questions that have been coming in, still, again, with sustainability and environmental sensitivity, but this time from an engineering perspective. Someone sent in a comment earlier indicating electric engines, I suppose, and also employing solar technology as well to power vessels, to power transport vehicles, whether it's for leisure or for commerce, transshipment, and so on. So that's one comment that came in there. Another bit of information that has come in has to do with the tourism aspect of the sector, and this would focus more on the leisure marine side of things. We would have heard from Mr. Webb that regattas and the sports aspect of yachting continue to be a major pull, a major draw. That's a growth pool area. Mr. Webb, could you just elaborate once more for the benefit of our participants on this particular aspect of the industry and what it could mean in terms of sporting development as well as tourism earnings?
Earnings is a difficult one to sort of calculate, I think. I can only look at regattas that are taking place in other parts of the Caribbean, perhaps. I mean, obviously, as we've said, Tobago has had a very good regatta. I think it was more of a local regatta, and I may be wrong. Mr. Edgeshill may be able to correct me there. But I certainly think that the big international regattas, they generate, a considerable economic footprint, as we've seen before. And we've seen this all around the world as well. I mean, we cover a lot of yacht racing around the world. I was in Long Beach last week in California, and that was a big event, a huge event. And people were coming in from all over the world. And I'll go back to Antigua. I know you hate me for it, but the Antigua race that's happening right now, it finishes in a couple of days, I believe. I mean, I believe there are something like well over 12 or 1,500 sailors taking part. They've bought yachts from around the world to come to the regatta. They have chartered yachts locally to take part in it as well. I couldn't give you an economic footprint value on that, but it's going to be a lot of $1 million, that's for sure. I mean, it's got to be 10 or 20 or $30 million, I don't know. And I know that the Antigua Hotels Association are involved in it, and I know that the tourism board is involved in it as well. I've been involved in regattas in the BVI, for example, and in St. Thomas, Barbados, and so on. There's a whole circuit of these Caribbean regattas, and they are fabulous. They create publicity all around the world. And I do think it's something that Tobago ought to, if they can, regenerate, get that going. It will have a huge impact. And it's not just the economic footprint locally, as I say, it's the PR side of it as well. You get the message out around the world and it creates publicity. So you all know how that works, I'm sure. I would definitely recommend it if you can. I mean, that's about as much as I can really say on it right now.
Thanks very much, Mr. Webb. I have another area of discussion for Mr. Alain. A question.
Before you go on, let me just, you hearing me right?
Yes, loud and clear.
Right. Just a response to Mr. Webb. First of all, the Minister of Trade has given a mandate for a regatta to be reignited in Tobago. Myself being a past yacht racer myself, I do have a lot of interest in seeing that come to pass. So we are working on that presently. In terms of dealing with some consultants to make it a reality. So hopefully we will get you involved in that process as well, because we want to get it right. We want to get it right, and we want that to be a sustainable event every year for Tobago going forward. If I can as well, just ask a quick question to Mr. Spalberg. Joe, thank you for your presentation as well. Question is, with respect to the regulations that are coming, obviously, there's going to be a requirement for retrofitting of vessels, right? And the cost of doing that, has there been any effort towards an estimate of cost that ships and vessels and different types of vessels will be expected to put out to be compliant with the new regulations? And also, are there any concessions that are being put in place to offset some of those costs? And are there any indicators that there will be an impact on shipping costs based on the regulations that are being implemented?
Thank you for these important questions, Mark. I'm sorry to say I do not have the answer to the questions. I'm not an expert in this matter, but we'll be happy to get answers to these questions and email them over to you. As far Ambassador Cavendish may be able to correct me if necessary, but when it comes to EU funding, I do not think there's going to be anything available for refitting vessels. However, there might be funding available, and I don't know from what sources, when it comes to refitting port facilities. And I think that's where Trinidad and Tobago should be focusing on in the first place.
Thanks, Joe.
I'm happy to come in there on that. The money I've spoken about earlier, out of the 800 million that the European Union has made available in grants for the Caribbean, 208 million is available from now to 2027. About 79 million is already sort of pre-earmarked, and the 129 million available for projects such as I had mentioned the use of photovoltaic energy. In addition, we also now have the Global Gateway, and that is worth 300 billion worldwide. Unlike the other, well-known grant giver out there, we don't do loans normally, but under the Global Gateway and the 300 billion, We can do partnerships with other actors to do infrastructural projects. In addition, we can work with the European Investment Bank. And just to be clear, the European Investment Bank is owned by the European Union member states, not by the European Union institutions. But that bank is the oldest development bank of its kind in the world, founded in 1956. It has virtually unlimited funds because it can draw on international capital markets. The benefit to actors such as governments and public agencies is that it's a not-for-profit body. It does not make a profit on what it does. What I also like to underline, which we don't sell enough, is that there is vast, no equivalent anywhere in the world, access to technical expertises through the European institutions. If you want to know anything from microwave technology to photovoltaic technology, those expertises are out there. And while the financial capital is very important, often it's the human capital, the educational capital, that's really going to make a difference. This is a reason why I'm mentioning this, is I'm going back to the Erasmus funding, where I'm trying to put about 15, claim as much as I can out of 15 million available for the Caribbean region in areas such as ecotourism, in areas such as digital, in the maritime sector. So I've given you the overview. Clearly, we're not going to do refitting of individual ships, but certainly if there are multiplier items, be it infrastructure, be it recycling, be it training. We are working with, already worked with UTT here in the Maritime Technology sector, sorry, Maritime Technology Cooperation Center. Yes, there we can intervene. But perhaps also I'd like to make a precision. Why are European Union regulations so relevant in the Caribbean? Well, it's any ship that's going to go in and out of a European port is going to be affected by this. And as Europe is predominantly the major recipient of carriers with the USA, these regulations are applicable. So that is why it's going to be of such worldwide ramifications. I do think I've heard very interesting statistics today, and I'm sure the doubling of the international maritime economy from 1.5 to 3 trillion. These are all very, very good. But I do wish to wonder about the role of artificial intelligence and effectively 3D printing. Now, 3D printing has accelerated out of all belief. So there's many items we're not aware of already that are being 3D printed, and that may also influence world trade shipping. Perhaps instead of producing in the Far East, they will produce in the Caribbean in factories here where costs may be lower and ship directly to Europe and the USA. So I'm not too sure to what degree that has been factored into these estimates. The estimates are certainly good. They sound approximately correct. But I think that the shipping is likely to be reinvented as a result of these regulations. But there is also this multiplier of 3D printing, artificial intelligence, which may make the Caribbean an even more attractive area to produce things. So I'm just putting these things out there. But I do wish to underline Global Gateway up to 300 billion. That's EU grants, public money, private money, and European Investment Bank money. This is separate from the funds that I've talked about, which are from the European Union budget, where again, we can look at recycling, we can look at green energy, photovoltaic energy, and of course, actively on the moment on training, because the investment in human capital may pay off the best in the longest run. So those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Cavendish. We do have a couple of participants who've had their hand up for a bit. I'd like to open the floor for Molly Commoner, who has a question to put to the panel. Molly Commoner, you have the floor. Hello, Molly Commoner. All right. Rudolph Williams also had his hand up. Rudolph Williams, are you able to ask your question now? Hello, Rudolph Williams. Molly Commoner. All right, while they're trying to get themselves organized, I do have a couple other points. One of these questions has to do with, I think, Mr. Elaine, this is in your wheelhouse. Is there a company or firm available that can assist other CARICOM-based businesses with business setup in TNT, licensing, legal, etc.? Mr. Elaine, could you respond to this, please?
Absolutely. I think the question, as I heard it, Jessie May, is whether CARICOM-based businesses can be assisted in setting up in Trinidad and Tobago. Absolutely. InvestiT does foreign direct investment, regional investment, local investment across the board. So absolutely, we've had other CARICOM partners set up operations in Trinidad and Tobago. Please reach out to us at investit.co.tt and we will assist.
Thank you. Ambassador Cavendish just hinted at training opportunities and that special program that's being offered in UTT. And part of the discussion ongoing in the chat has to do with training ships officers, engineers, and other key people to operate in the maritime industry. We know that there are training opportunities in Jamaica. The Bahamas also has something going on based on what I've seen in the chat. But here at UTT, at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, we do have our own training program. There's also a special project in collaboration with the European Union, that's the Maritime Technology Cooperation Center, just for the benefit of our participants, to make you aware of that. Here is where the question comes in though. This person is asking, would it be wise for the Trinidad and Tobago government to acquire deep sea vessels or companies for the purpose of exporting internationally so they can utilize the talents being generated here and gain economic benefit? I'm not sure to whom that question should be addressed, but perhaps maybe Mr. Alain, you'd want to tackle that one? Do you think?
Well, I mean, the government's investment in encouraging economic activity across the board, and certainly in maritime, is to facilitate private sector investment that have the experience and technical skill to engage in those types of operations. So certainly we are looking at all export-related projects, particularly in this industry, yachting being one of those. And you would note that ship layups and industrial bulk transshipment are all fully export-related activities. So I think what our focus is identifying those shipping firms or other maritime sector participants that have that technical skill and giving them access to that, making them aware of the opportunity in Trinidad and Tobago, keeping abreast of industry developments. And Mr. Spalberg talked a lot about the environmental side, keeping close contact with the European Union and the grants that they're offering, whether private sector can access those for what Mr. Etchell spoke about in terms of retrofitting ships. We're wide open to ensuring that the private participants in these industries have easy access to what is available in Trinidad and Tobago. On mute. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Let me see. I think, let me see if I can bring Mr. Mali Pomina on. All right. I am not able to unmute your mic, Mr. Pomina, nor am I able to unmute. We have you. Yes. Please go ahead.
Morning. Hi. Morning, everyone.
Yes.
All guests and panel speakers, Honorable Mayor. Good morning, everyone. This is Mali Kwamina, founder and CEO for Mega Interior and Construction Limited, Ecopreneur, ESG Enterprise. But I just wanted to share opinion because I've been attending a couple forums and webinars with development for SIDS and ESG projects. And one of the problems I'm seeing, because the problem that I thought we had before was financing or technology or resource-based solutions. And actually I came up with all of those things not being true. The problem we actually having is the levelers, is the stakeholders, creating the easier opportunity for ecopreneurs or small companies to actually take these terms of reference or these expressions of interest to financiers. So for example, a big company like Electrical Industrial Group, I'm doing a bid for them and they are doing a whole new warehouse, a whole new development, and there's no solar, there's no energy efficiency, there's no climate change planning or adaptation. And the reason for that is because there's no money available for developing the project to that state or feasible study. And I think that problem is only because they are not accessing all the platforms and the tools and the investment opportunities that there is right now for SIDS and LAC developing countries. And that problem is only because we have a big gap between small company, micro, and large and the levelers, as into how we could all work together, collaborate, and use sustainable goal number 17 to actually be more efficient and have a more integrated project delivery approach. So I don't know if my opinion is actually important to the maritime sector eco development, but the same problem could just keep going around, you know, to all the sectors where we're doing a lot of development, but we are not putting out, when we reach a good feasible study or a good project ready for financing and investment, we're not putting out expressions of interest or opportunities for ecopreneurs or small companies to actually give proposals and introduce their new technology or their innovation or their experience, you know, for that sector. And my company is one. Sorry, yeah.
Thanks very much for sharing that particular dilemma. I'm not sure which of our panelists would like to take that. Ambassador Cavendish, would you like to respond? And perhaps Mr. Adley?
Well, it's very good that he's raised this issue because, in fact, the European Union, together with your ministries, the Ministry for Planning and Development and the Ministry for Trade and Industry, we have, in fact, an innovation fund available to Trinidadian business enterprises at this point in time. Now, we're running that fund with Kariri, who is doing the technical appraisals. And basically, we have 65 million in Trinidadian dollars available to young entrepreneurs who wish to innovate. So if you check on the respective websites, there is one call for innovative ideas has already been launched, and we do still have monies available for further calls. So if you check about Kariri's website for innovation, you will see when the calls will be announced. And in fact, I've met with the president of Kariri, and he's very stimulated by the quality of the proposals they've already received, but they don't have enough of them. So this is a very good chance for the person who has just spoken to go and to see if he could have an idea taken up with Kariri and get their backing to take it forward. And we have 65 million euros. The European Union is providing about 63.5 of that, and the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, is providing the rest, but it's also providing some expertise. So in terms of innovation, yes, I just wish to flag out, we're actively trying to do something at this point in time. And I would just by the by also mention something very relevant is that we're also seeking to finance a study for up to about 400,000 euros on the use of wind, the potential for using wind energy in this country. This country is, in terms of energy, totally blessed. You've had oil, you've got gas, you've got wind, you've got wave, and you have sunlight. So this country can actually be a role model, and that's what we're hoping in our objectives for the money on clean energy. So anyway, going back to that previous speaker, check out Kariri's site, check out innovation, check out planning and development for the links to innovation. And it's been an amazing collaboration between your government agencies and also with Kariri and the IDB. So it's on his question is good. And I'm just saying the opportunity is there.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Peter. Could I just touch on it a little more?
We actually are running out of time, and I've got to put a very important question to the mayor.
Okay, I'll just take 2 minutes or one. I'll just take 1 minute for the most.
What you can do
to compile it.
Put your question.
I'll just take 1 minute
together, and you can pass them on to the team, and someone will get back to you with more information. Okay. All right. Looking at the question for the mayor, Mayor Martinez, this has to do with the revitalizing plans that you have for the city. And this person is asking, what are you planning to do in terms of climate resilience for the revitalizing of the Port of Spain capital? And especially in light of your desire to develop a proper marina, to have a proper marina development for the capital city. And as we know, we need to be mindful of climate change and adaptation and mitigation where possible when it comes to a development of that nature. Mr. Mayor? Mayor Martinez? All right.
Jesse, I believe the mayor had another engagement at a sod training as well, so his office might be online, but he may have had to leave the seminar. You're on mute, Jesse.
I just clicked off my mic. Sorry about that. Yeah, as we mentioned, marina development just a moment ago, we've also had some commentary coming in with regard to the size of the ports in the region. That's another area for a major investment, the development of ports in the region. One person mentioning that the size of the cruise ships that come into the region for the leisure aspect of the maritime industry, the cruise ships are too big, they can't come into our ports. There's also the issue of the commercial aspect with regard to transshipment, and that the container ships are getting too big. They can't come into our ports either. Our ports aren't as developed enough to deal with these supersized vessels, as it were. And there was a recommendation made by someone in the chat that we look at transshipping, sort of breaking things down. So we develop our transshipment capability even further, even as we seek to expand the size of our ports. I'm not sure who'd want to tackle that, Mr. Elaine or Ambassador Cavendish. Would either of you want to tackle that issue of port development and expansion of transshipment capability for Trinidad and Tobago specifically, and the region by extension?
Sure.
Well, I mentioned, sorry, go ahead, Sekou.
I'll be quick, Ambassador. One of the things we do in any of the sectors, particularly this one, is we look at the infrastructure involved and the extent to which that infrastructure either drives investment or prevents or barrier for that investment. Land port investment, certainly in Trinidad and Tobago, is a bit more complicated. We do have the EOI, I believe, that was put out for the Port of Spain port for the redevelopment of that port, and certainly we would share those types of EOIs with investors that we know do have experience in port development and or PPPs with respect to ports. Other than that, what I would say is our focus right now is on the floating ports in the bulk transshipment area, where expansion of your activity or where investors' infrastructure, in fact, comes into play to allow for those industrial activities to happen, save and except for what happens on the existing land ports. So we are open to innovative ideas or investment opportunities that seek to bring their own infrastructure or knowledge on board to improve the infrastructure that we have here and or bring new economic activity to the country. Back over to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Well, I think you've spoken very eloquently there as to the type of, we need quality projects. As I said, we have monies available, which we would give between 50,000 and 5 million euros for a project, but it's given money and other partners would have to come up. But we can't come up with the project or the ideas. People have to come up with the ideas, talk to the national ministries, talk to us, and we can see what's fundable. And I've mentioned also the Global Gateway, which is very much more orientated towards infrastructure. And there we wish to see, of course, renewables, recyclables, green energy, these type of areas. And those components of major infrastructural projects would be very attractive to us. So there are opportunities, but we do need other people to come up with the ideas and build the projects, and we're happy to talk to them.
All right, this is the final bit coming out of the chat and from the Q&A that I'm going to share before we wrap up. This person pointing to an issue that involves town and country planning, actually coming out of the Ministry of Planning and Development with regard to seabed leases and the fact that getting these leases needs to be fast-tracked. Companies interested in developing the sector requiring these leases have been having a challenge. Mr. Elaine, is this something that InvestTT can help with? Perhaps nudge your sister agency, particularly if you're busy linking up the business and they're coming up with this tiny stumbling block. Is there anything InvestTT can do?
Sure. So we do have connectivity into town and country planning, as well as the Commission of State Plans, under whose remit I believe a seabed lease would. There has been some interaction in the past on that, which has presented some challenge, which is why for the bulk transshipment and ship layup opportunities that I presented earlier. The focus there was on not a seabed lease, but having a pre-designated area through which an application could be made for a particular type of activity to occur under the Maritime Services Division, then having the regulatory approval to be able to allow for that activity that doesn't necessarily require a seabed lease, but requires that allows you to operate within that area of the Gulf of Paria for some period of time. We can re-engage with the Commissioner of State Lands with respect to the specific question of seabed leases and the extent to which it would like to move in that direction of conferring those leases. If in fact that is the case, we would want to make that a transparent process for access for investors, but certainly open to any ideas the investors have around those seabed leases versus the idea of the approval for a designated activity within the sea that does not necessarily require a seabed lease, but certainly allows one to operate in a particular manner.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Elaine. We've come to the end of today's session, but before we go, I'd just like to ask TTCSI President, Mr. Mark Edgell, to once again remind everyone that the Trinidad and Tobago maritime industry is open for business, and we are open to partners with our international colleagues to make this happen.
Thanks, Jesse. I think you summed it up pretty well there yourself. We are open for business. The TTCSI is looking to facilitate and ensure that the interest that comes from our investors internationally and even our local entrepreneurs have support of the TTCSI to actually ensure that the investment opportunities do materialize. As I mentioned in my opening statements, we are aware of some of the difficulties that have transpired in the past. I believe Mr. Allen at InvestTT can absolutely assist us in mitigating some of those challenges and clearing some of the roadblocks that may have existed in the past. But we are definitely committed, as I've said, to ensuring that this sector does move forward, does receive the interest and attention and investment that is required, so that we can see Trinidad and Tobago become a major player in this particular sector. So I want to thank everybody for their presentations as well, and everyone for taking the time this morning to listen to what we have to offer in Trinidad and Tobago, and also look forward to hearing from a lot of you on what interest you may have and how we can work together.
Thanks very much, Mr. Edgell, and thanks to you and the TTCSI team for having the vision and the foresight to consider hosting a webinar of this nature. Let's see that business flow as a result of today's intervention. Special thanks to Ambassador Cavendish for his support in making today's webinar possible. Ambassador Cavendish, we do cherish the strong relationship we have with you at the European delegation as well as the European Union. And we're looking forward to seeing how much deeper and stronger that relationship can go. We want to thank our partners at the Caribbean Export Development Agency for providing us with the technical and technological support for the webinar today, as well as for helping us with our diversification thrust here in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you as well to our partners at InvestTT, who've been working assiduously to line up the international partners with our local businesses. And they've been working hand in hand and side by side with our other partners, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, as both a matchmaker and a doula to ensure those dreams come to fruition. So thank you very much, Mr. Elaine and your team. Thank you very much to His Worship Joel Martinez, Mayor of Port of Spain, for sharing his holistic vision for the city of Port of Spain. We want to say thank you to Clifford Webb, Chairman of the Journalists Yachting Association, for his very informative presentation with regard to many opportunities that you, our participants, would wish to explore with Trinidad and Tobago. Special thanks to Joe Sporberg, Secretary of the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce in Europe, for alerting us to the very important variable in the maritime industry development equation, and that is thinking green. Thank you for sharing those things that we needed to be alerted to. as well as for opening our eyes to opportunities that should be explored. Most importantly, the team at the TTCSI would like to thank you, the participants who logged on, signed in, and joined us for today's session. We look forward to hearing from those of you who've taken advantage of the opportunity of this briefing and networking session. And let's see what business comes at the end of all of this. To the participants who put your questions, thanks for alerting us to issues that need to be ironed out. We will hit the road running to see how we can deal with those issues. And with that, I say thank you on behalf of the entire TTCSI team. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Great. Well done.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Joe, we're gonna have to have a lot of conversations, so don't go too far.
No, I'm right here.
We may need to bring you down here to have a captive audience with you.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Bye.